The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaru Productions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Tokutalk.
Hello.
This is Marcus's idea.
Yes, that's it.
What is it?
So, today, even though we're getting a little bit closer to
Current?
the actual end of the Heisei era, because we only have 2 left to do with Kamen Rider.
Holy fuck.
Building ZO.
I sort of wanted to talk about story structure. Like, from Heisei Phase 1 to Heisei Phase 2, since we watched pretty much all of them at this point.
Yeah.
So for a breakdown on that timeline, it would be Kuga through Decade and then W through ZO.
Yes.
Thank you. So we just... that's an interesting concept.
Now, do we just want to look at Kamen Rider, or do we want to look at...
Just Rider.
Just Rider?
Yeah, it's a big...
Heisei was more of a... Like, calling something the Heisei era was more of a Kamen Rider thing.
Yeah.
Super Sentai didn't have a break.
Yeah, we're on number 45.
I'll say it didn't have the break, but also Super Sentai didn't change that much dramatically, structurally speaking, and still hasn't.
It depends on that time frame, because you could say something like Aba Ranger through Geki Ranger were exceedingly story heavy,
but that's like a couple of shows within the period, as opposed to. I feel like to start us off, I'll say looking at that gap right there. From Kuga through Decade, there is a very big switch just in terms of how the shows look.
Mm-hmm.
Right from Decade to W.
How do you mean?
I mean, they look starting from W going onwards, because going back and rewatching W still looks really slick. The production values look a little higher.
They started making a lot of money.
Yes. They started making a lot of money, but they started spending more money.
Yeah.
Because you go back and you look at Decade. Decade looks a little lower quality. It looks a little cheaper. You go back and look through the other shows from that era. There is a way that things are lensed where they're shot in HD, but the video quality just isn't quite up to snuff from what we get from the second half.
I'm wondering, and this is just a thought that occurred, would Decade be an outlier of this because they had to have more of a budget for costumes, bringing back the 9 previous writers. I don't know if that's necessarily a budget for costumes, because I think they could just reuse old ones if they were around.
For most, I don't know what happened to the gill suit at this point. No, it was broken. The gill suit was pretty much
But did
gone.
the gill suit ever show up in Decade?
I was going to say, but how many episodes
in the
is that?
Movie. But it only showed up in that shot when all of them were on that cliff.
Yeah.
That might have been O's.
I'm just saying that it could have been something to think about, is that having to have
I think it was O's.
The suits.
Either way.
But I'm not saying that was the only factor, but I'm saying that could have been a factor for it having a smaller...
We still had a pretty heavy CG. I mean, you look at a show like Ryuki, that show was very CG heavy.
It was also filmed at a different frame rate. You can tell. Yeah. Because I think that
it's a higher frame rate for the first half.
I think that didn't really... you really didn't start noticing that frame rate change until maybe Ibiki. Because Blade still did the same thing pretty much for a portion of it.
Excuse me.
But those first 5 shows, you could tell that the cameras are very different.
The cameras are different. The cameras seem to be of a cheaper quality. Not saying that's inherently bad, but
it's noticeable.
It is noticeable.
It is definitely noticeable, and you can tell because this was them coming back to doing Rider at the time. At least normally or on a regular basis, I should say. So it's very interesting to see exactly how, especially this is just filming styles, how they look so different. But on that same vein, we end up going to something back.
We're also jumping from full screen to widescreen.
Yes. Yeah. Which happened around Kabuto. But we end up going back to something like Kuga. It really helps the brutality of that show. Just because of how that camera looks and how that camera films at such a high frame rate, watching Kuga just beat the shit out of somebody looks a lot more brutal.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. Because, we always talk about the one episode of Kuga when he just bisects the monster. I was watching that, and it just looks there's a grit to it.
That's a good way to put it.
I love it.
I think Ryuki would be another good comparison because the world of Ryuki, especially the scenes in the wintertime, you watch it and it just feels cold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It feels more, the world just has this gritty, lived-in feel to it, even though you have these fantastical things happening. You have these monsters coming in from other dimensions, big CG dragons and spectacle fights. But even with all that, it manages to feel like a real world that people are living in.
Yeah.
Which I think adds to the overall dramatic weight of the story.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that Ryuki was one of the only Kamen Riders where the battles took place elsewhere. You know what I mean? It was the mirror world. It was the mirror world. So you never have to worry about collateral damage.
We don't have to worry about collateral damage, and also in the mirror world, because everything is so empty, it just feels so cold and sterile.
Yeah.
So all of your focus is on what's going on between the combatants.
And the fact that you can tell that obviously something is just wrong with how empty it is, and two, how everything is flipped.
Yeah.
So,
Fraction mode.
Yeah, it looks just off, and I love that though.
Oh no, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I was just wondering if that had something to do with it. The cold feeling and the feeling that the world that we see them, live in is being lived in because it's not being, it's not directly being affected by all this fantastical stuff.
Compared to something like O's.
Yeah.
Where it's just a lot of bright, a lot of flashy.
Yeah, but I feel like that really matches what O's is going for in terms of tone. So I think it worked in his case.
And then obviously that started with,
Yeah.
where everything had to get a lot brighter, a lot quicker because Kabuto was not.
People getting a lot sadder.
Yeah, Kabuto it's a very desaturated, very.
It is a very desaturated. I love that show and everybody knows it. But comparing something like Kabuto to say Forze,
and I think Ryuki, you could also say that about.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray tones to it. Like even the suits look a little.
It's a lot of gray tones. It's that lower tone color grading, and I think it works for the story.
That slight blue gray filter over everything.
Yeah, it was the early 2000s.
Yeah,
it was over every movie.
It's very, very true. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about story structure.
Okay.
Because looking at something like, I don't know, a two-parter from Kuga is very different from a two-parter from Den-O to a two-parter from, say, Forze or Wizard. It's mostly what the focus is on.
Yeah.
With something like Kuga, the focus is not on the monster. The monster just causes whatever the conflict is. Yeah. It always focuses on the people or the city in some cases.
Or how they're dealing with the threat.
Yeah. As the story goes along, like the threat gets bigger, but it's more on a citywide scale or like a state, I guess, just
however big of a level as the story requires it.
And I really think that gives a greater purpose of scale. Because we end up going to something like Forze, where the monster is everything.
It's the monster, it's the victim, and I think with Forze is a unique case among victims of the week because we're looking at Gentaro and his entourage of friends, and we're looking at how is Gentaro changing this victim's life? How is he using the power of friendship to improve their lives and to, in the end, triumph over evil?
Yeah.
And I think on that level it works. It does bring in the problem of every episode we have to watch the victim either run away, contrive some reason for the monster to get away.
Yeah.
Or, it feels like it can get dragged out unnecessarily. I think O's and W have this problem too, Wizard especially, but it's still good. And it still works, at least for Forza, I certainly think it does.
And it really does, depending on what the focus is going to be on. The contriving of a monster getting away drives me up the fucking wall. And I hate it. Because Forze and Wizard are exceedingly guilty of this. And I hate that so much. But when we end up having something, and this is definitely, I'm not sure if it's a difference in direction style or just a difference in storytelling, but something like Ryuki, where it's a bit more interpersonal conflict, and is more focused on the people and how they end up reacting to it, or they're reacting to each other and the things that people did.
Yes.
So, and I think the fact that there was an absence of monsters in Ryuki really made it so you couldn't just the monster gets away for no reason.
In a show like Ryuki or Agito, where it is more of a serialized story, where we are focused on these heroes, and the villains aren't as big of a part of the picture because we're looking at the heroes or the anti-heroes or, someone in the Oja or whatever. We're looking at them, the writers themselves, and how are they dealing with and working through these circumstances.
Yeah.
And that's what we're focused on. Whereas in something like O's, it's more about the theatricality of heroics.
Yeah.
It's more about, let's put on a flashy suit and let's go beat up a monster.
Or even the next aid, where it is, we sort of have a victim at the beginning, but the story is still never really
not so much sort of. We do, but the thing, X8 is, I would say, unique among, especially the second phase, where it's all about perspective.
Well, Gaim too.
I would say X8 more so.
Yeah.
X8 much more so, because you look at where the show starts, and you look at where the show ends. And I wasn't a huge fan, because I said this in the review, I wasn't the biggest fan of X8 when it started. It was like, okay, really? I feel like you could have changed this, you could have done this could have been better. But then you look at where they take the story as a result, and it's like, oh, okay, now I understand. I understand why Poppy and Asuna had to be the same person. I understand why, Dan was acting the way he was, why, whatnot, so on and so forth. But
yeah,
you look back and you understand why. With Gaim, I didn't really get that. Gaim, I feel, you look back at where it started to where it ended, and it feels like they just kind of made it up as they went along.
There was a jump. And I think this is the thing that sort of helps Kuga and X8 just that much more, because the scaling was much more gradual. It was, it was like, this makes sense how we got from point A to point T or something. But in something like Gaim, there was a huge jump from one arc to another. Yeah. You got from point A to point AA real quick, and I don't have need of those batteries. I'm gonna need you to come back down. So it was just a lot very quickly. And you really don't always need that scale to just, I guess, get that massive that fast. With X8, it's just like, all right, so we have, concentrated cases, 2020 and 2021, your concentrated cases of this virus, and then it starts spreading to people. And it starts getting very spread out. Kuga was just like, the monsters kept ramping up what they were doing for their game to try to always be on top.
Right.
So just like, there was a constant level of, all right, we know how we got here. But in some cases, especially in phase 2, it's just like, let's look at Wizard, for example. The end game just happens.
Yeah.
The end game just happens. And even interstitially throughout, I think a lot of Neo Heisei is guilty of this. And, whether or not it's good or bad is all up to the individual. It's not so much we have to fight. It's not so much the writer discovering something new or learning something new to find a way to solve a problem. It's, I got this new toy. I got this new form. I got this new attachment. Now I have the one thing I need to win.
We could go on for days and days about the forms.
Yeah.
Especially on the second half. Because when you have somebody like Kuga who were just like, we have a form for each situation.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
He's got one for hand-to-hand, one for a sword, one for long range, one for a staff.
Yeah. It's just like, we have
weapons that he can, one for a weapon that he can use situationally. You look at Ryuki, where it's the base form, and then we have a final form. Yeah.
There is a little bit of a difference there, because there were just 30 riders.
Yeah.
I understand, but it's just, we have 2 forms. And, and that's what we need. I mean, Hibiki also, we had the 2 forms.
Ryuki, instead of doing forms,
we had 3.
Did 30 riders, but also did situational abilities.
Yeah.
With the cards, with the, and all of that.
And there wasn't a lot of sharing.
No.
Between each writer.
Instead of saying it's time to fight, Ryuki said it's time to duel and got out his duel disc in his deck.
And played a children's card game. But this time there was actual death.
Yeah. I'm taking you to the Shadow Realm.
So not for kids.
No. Yeah, this is just
Fuck for kids.
This is just one of those things. I want to talk about sort of one of those main things besides just story structure. I want to talk about at least our main writers a little bit. And how some things we just don't get anymore.
Okay.
So you have Kuga, you have Joe, who, Gentaro was a lot like Joe. Both very peppy, always, trying to help out people and stuff. Even, how their stories sort of end up going. But you know what type of character we don't get anymore?
What's that?
Tendo. Tsukasa.
You mean a Mary Sue?
No, because Tendo was still...
Tendo was a Mary Sue.
He was also not the main character.
No, I get that, but still.
But, no, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about, where is my confident bastard man? We don't really get characters like that. The closest we sort of gotten was Haruto. So...
I don't even feel like he was that.
No.
At all.
He was
That's
plain sugar.
what I said, the closest we have gotten.
He was plain... He was cardboard plain sugar.
I feel like Baron might have been close to that.
So he's not a main writer, though.
But he's still a very confident bastard man.
I think Baron is closer than Haruto.
Yeah.
I would say Baron, I would say Brave would be a good example as well.
It seems like your confident bastard man has been demoted to the secondary writer.
Which I don't get. I miss having that as
Here's
a main
the
writer.
reason. Here's the reason I think it is. This is a kid's show.
And so is Kabuto.
Let me finish.
Let him finish his thought.
It goes back to the conversation we were actually having prior to us starting. Is the main character #relatable? And when he's a relatable main character, the watcher is more inclined to be invested in their story. And I think that Confident Bastard Man is fun to watch, but not as easy to get invested in. You know what I mean?
I have something to say as well.
Sure.
So, in a lot of shows, or books or games, whatnot, your main character, especially we see this in Toku a lot, will be a very
new to the situation type of person.
I was going to say blank slate.
Blank slate is a good... It's kind of like Link from Legend of Zelda. It's like a blank slate that you can project yourself on. He possesses noble qualities. He's heroic. He likes to help people. He's a good person.
He likes to break pots.
I mean, don't we all?
And get accosted by chickens.
Yeah!
Don't kill the chickens.
Fried chicken is delicious. Who wouldn't?
But because of the lack of other personality traits, it allows us to kind of put us...
It allows us to project ourselves more onto that. And as a result, the secondary characters, they get to have a little more personality and they get to be a little more developed as a result.
That's kind of what I was going for, yeah.
So that's why I think that your confident bastard man is more delegated to that, because someone who is cocky and self-assured, but at the end of the day still capable, is more delegated to secondary status, because we don't... That's... Like I was saying before, the blank slate is more what they want their intended audience to project themselves on.
Because then they're invested.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, you can be invested when your main character... Let's look at Tendo, for example. And this is the reason why Kagami was the one that... The story was, hold on. This is why Kagami's story was the one that we ended up following more, especially on the first half. But we always had Tendo there, mostly to, one, clean up, and two, to really be something to have Kagami sort of strive towards, which they come across in ZO.
But that's the thing, though. You've kind of contradicted your own argument. Tendo isn't the main character of Kabuto, even though his name's in the title.
But Tsukasa is.
Yeah, but Tsukasa is confident, but at the same time, he's learning. I mean, he's growing. Tendo didn't fucking grow. Tendo at start of show, and Tendo at end of show was same Tendo.
Who's Tsukasa again?
Decade.
Thank you.
Yeah. So while I understand that you like the confident bastard man, Decade was horrible.
The show was.
And
the writer, not so much.
But at the same time, while he is confident, it's at times it's almost a
parody.
No, I don't want to say parody. I want to say, in terms of character, he may not be as confident as he acts because he has no idea what the fuck is going on. Whereas Tendo doesn't give a shit what the fuck is going on. He knows he can punch it and solve the problem.
No, he knows he can outsmart it.
Same thing. In Kamen Rider, same thing. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how
you outsmarted by punching it.
Exactly. That's how Kamen Rider works.
You can't you can't be outsmarted by something that is dead.
No, but let's look at the first time Tendo meets Zabi. Like the first time they end up fighting, and there's that whole thing where Zabi thinks that he broke his driver, and Tendo's like, "No, you didn't." And then he stole tofu. Well, he didn't steal it. He just got it first.
But at the end, what I'm saying is that no matter how much outsmarting is done, it still ends with a punch to the face. The problem is still inevitably solved by a punch to the face.
Well, yeah,
then he kicks the bee's ass, and the bee gets demoralized.
That's more the nature.
And becomes a victim.
That's the nature of the show.
That's the point I was saying.
The genre, not so much the show.
Yeah,
that was the point I was making. Is that I don't care how outsmarted somebody is, it's still going to end with a punch to the face. So outsmarting still ends up being who can punch somebody in the face better. My point being, we have diverged from the point that I was trying to make, is that Tsukasa may be a cocky bastard man, but he is still growing as a character, which is something that, as a viewer, you can get invested in that growth. Whereas Tendo, you cannot get invested in him as a character because he...
I feel like you can.
Go ahead. I think getting invested in Tendo as a character is a similar reason we get invested in Saitama from One Punch Man as a character. It's not about will he save the day, it's how will he save the day.
Yeah.
What cool thing am I going to... Because, I mean, I didn't like Kabuto. I'm taking myself out of the equation when I say this. I'm more thinking about people who do, or, things that I like. Sorry, rambling. But you watch something like that, and it's, what cool thing am I going to see him do? What sort of awesome stunt am I going to see? What cool fight am I going to get? What cool one-liner is he going to say? How am I going to... I want to see him swagger onto the screen and just wreck shop.
Which is exactly what he does.
And that's why you're invested in him. You're not invested in Saitama because it's like, oh, is he going to win? It's like, we know he's going to win. You want to see him come in. You want to see that existential crisis. You want to see that comedy. That's why we're invested in Saitama. And for similar reasons, we're invested in Kabuto. We want to just see him be cool and be awesome.
And
there's nothing wrong with that.
And also, because no matter what he does, Tendo will always do it hilariously. He'll just be there.
He'll show up as a new profession. Yes, I get that.
Which is something that, they did with Tsukasa. Every single time he went to a new world, he was always in a new costume, doing something. Yeah. But with Tendo, it's just like him showing up as a chef. Mm-hmm. Him showing up as a member. As a doctor. Him showing up as a member of pretty much the squad that with Zect.
In the uniform and everything.
Yeah, it's so fun just seeing him just like, how is he going to meme his way through this? And then he memes his way through it.
I don't know. I just think that, again, he's not the main... But my point was that he wasn't the main character of the show. He wasn't the story we were following. So you asking from our cocky bastard man main characters...
He may not have...
I don't feel like he qualifies.
He may not have been the main character, but he was the reason a lot of people were invested.
Yeah. Because especially the first half was...
He was the reason I was entertained. He was not the reason I was invested.
The second half was Tendo. Unfortunately, that's also when the show fell apart.
I think there's a thin line between those two words that some people get mixed up every now and then. The difference between being invested and being entertained. Because I thought Tendo was extremely entertaining. The fucking fight in the rain where the rain stopped and he walked through it because he was angry is one of the best fight scenes in Kamen Rider history.
Also, Hiro Mizushima, please come back to your YouTube channel and do more cooking stuff. I love watching you.
Anyway, but that's not me being invested in the character or story. That's me being entertained by flashy lights and a punch to the face.
Yeah. Regardless of which, Matt, is there anything about the characters that, from where we started to where we ended up that really sticks out to you in terms of how they changed or...
Besides Kuga?
In terms of how they changed or how they stayed the same, anything about them really stand out to you?
Kuga stands out to me a lot because of the amount of changing crises he had to go through, but still maintained his smile. Like, the moment he realized his rider kit destroys 3 city blocks, and
that immediate existential crisis that he had after the fact?
Yeah. And I'll give it this, even though we hate the show.
Bill.
There
we go.
Episode, was it?
21.
21 where he killed a man and had a fucking crisis.
Great pair of episodes.
Oh yeah, because he got a new form he couldn't control. He killed one of Grease's buddies from back home, and literally went to Grease and's like, beat the shit out of me.
Yeah,
I deserve it. And he goes, that's not gonna solve anything. You need to get your own shit fixed out.
Yeah.
You need to get your own shit sorted out. And I'm just like, where is this? The rest of the show?
In the garbage. Because they threw it. Nope, in the recycling bin. Because Japan is very good at recycling.
Very green.
As we should be.
But I still feel like as a character, he grew throughout the show because he...
Kuga or...
Bill.
Okay, Sento.
I forgot his name. I feel like there was some growth. Not as much as Kuga, because that's not fair. That's not a fair comparison to fucking anybody. Kuga. O's had some character growth. Forze, not really.
Gio.
Didn't watch it.
I did.
Hated looking at it.
No, we will. Eventually.
Don't remind me.
Coming up soon. You gotta rewatch Build first.
I can suffer through Build. I can't suffer through pauldrons that look like dildos on Viagra.
I'm happy they stopped using those forms.
So just big dildos?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just thought the phrase I used was funnier. Fair.
Whatever gets us from point A to B.
Whatever gets us demonetized faster. But...
You know, I'm going to extend it just a little bit. 01.
Yeah, he went from I'm just a comedian to someone who took his new job very seriously and was a very we make jokes about how Lucky from Q Ranger took a chill pill. He took the Ritalin the size of this microphone.
He took it real fast.
Yeah,
and I'm including
Must have been a suppository.
I'm including him because of the fact that there was no break in between the two. It just went from Heisei to Reiwa with no issues.
No, and
and 01 just interesting when they talk.
I still get goosebumps from the final scene of 01 where he's teaching. I forgot her name.
Isu.
The new Isu. Right and it's like, no, you gotta hold it, and it's just like
I can't wait till we get to find
it rips your heart out a little bit.
I can't wait till we get the movie. The movie's apparently amazing.
But so just the fact, you don't really see his growth because he's still making jokes the whole show when he can. But
Wataru from Kiba, he has some growth as well. But
you mean he went from kind of
shut in to not a shut in?
He went from shut in to not a shut in, but he went from a kind of a bitch to a whiny bitch.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bad one.
My girlfriend died.
Ryutaro from Dino. He got a backbone. Especially when he got liner form, that was the thing. I love when a good show actually, has some character growth at least somewhere in there. And I feel like some of the shows that are a bit more story-centric do a lot better on that. Actually, got him to an extent.
Jesus. I don't know if the mic can pick it up. His wrist is making a weird noise.
Ryuki has a great one. We saw how Knight was at the beginning. And we saw where he ended up. Willing to sacrifice, his own personal happiness to bring back everybody. Even the people who seriously did not deserve it. Although, to be fair, he did not bring back everybody.
Yeah, there's been some good character growth in Kamen Rider, especially in the Heisei area.
And I feel like that...
What do you think is the best example?
Either Kuga or 01, honestly.
01's very what?
Valid.
Emu. Yeah. Pretty much the entire cast. There's that cast.
Yeah, I'm still Kuga man for life.
I would agree. I would say X8.
Yeah. And I think that really came with somebody who really it was one writer throughout that entire show. And we pretty much had the same thing in 01.
Yeah.
Even though he had to...
Not so much that we had one writer, but we had one writer who was good at what they did.
Yeah. And he wrote...
That helped.
And
he wrote for 01.
We're referring to with a W. Writer with a W.
Not
not Kamen Rider W. And author.
That'll be the next season. It'll be Kamen Rider.
Honestly,
that's
I would
right
love...
Now.
He's an author.
That's right now.
Oh, yeah, valid. Fuck.
Except he'll actually use a pen.
I was about to
He
say
doesn't
that would be a
actually.
fantastic.
He doesn't actually
concept.
fight evil. He just writes books.
Actually,
there's-
that's called Death Note.
He just writes books, but he just puts a mask on while he does it. So Kamen Rider. That'll be great.
And on that note,
Why do I feel like that's a parody movie that's already being made?
well, we have never talked about
Copyright Tokucast.
We have
It's
never
mine now.
never talked about Kamen Rider G before. We're gonna do that one eventually. We might do that like on a random movie.
I'm surprised you've yet to ever bring up trying to do a review of Hentai Kamen.
No,
Okay. Good.
and I like that movie, but no.
Oh, it's a funny fucking movie. It's dumb as hell, but it's a funny movie.
Oh well.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. Just how the differences between phase 1 and 2. We'll send that in the 0-1 if you want to. That's perfectly alright. Yeah. Don't forget to join us with all the things.
All of the things.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.